Upon logging in, once you've created your profile, after you did the bear typography design, you should see this sort of layout here. You should see your design here that you could then open, and you can then edit and add things to. One thing I discovered about this is that, even though you do have what looks like one thing over here, if you double click on this, you can access like the anchor points, and you can move things around here and stuff. And what I thought was interesting was like even these little like cutouts here are their own little paths that can be adjusted and moved around and stuff. So there's actually a good deal of editing that you can do to this once you kind of get started on this. The one thing I think I would say one of the bigger disadvantages of this little website here is that you can't quite edit your pen, like your path, as you're working with this. You kind of have to either commit, almost all or nothing when it comes to your pen paths here. But we're going to try this same thing again. We're going to try this same design here, and we're going to add a little flair to it. We're going to add a little something else to it here. So let's go back to our profile, and let's create a new file. Now, just so you can reference this, I'm using a Microsoft Surface. I'm using obviously Windows 10. And so most of where I'm coming from this is coming from this laptop as far as this goes. This is just a laptop that's got a little touchpad down here, and it's okay when it comes to the RAM and stuff. I think it's got about 16 gigs of RAM, and I'm just using just normal, like, just home Cox Internet Wi-Fi on a little router that I got off Amazon. So as far as I can tell, it doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of Wi-Fi like capabilities for this kind of website here. But if you are having a hard time with it running slow, let me know, and I'll see if I can't get some troubleshooting from this website's sponsors or people here. So you should see this image of a little miniature pig in your D2L, and let's go ahead and upload this. And so we're going to create this, and we're going to use the word oink instead of the word pig. So let's see if we can upload this image here. Okay, so here we go, miniature pig. That should pop in pretty simply there. So like I said before, the pen tool, you got to be careful of a couple of things with the pen tool when you're using this. Let me zoom in some. So for example, if I start over here, I'll start right here by this leg, and I start to get into the real close details here. One thing you'll notice is that if I were to start creating a little curve, notice this little node right here. The moment if I were just to touch that, the whole thing would sort of suddenly become, kind of like finalized. And so I guess if you click on the last node, you can continue on with it. But it's one of those things you got to be careful of. I'm just going to use the front leg here. I'm not going to use the back leg as well. So you cannot use the spacebar to navigate. You can normally use the spacebar when you navigate around, but not so much when you have the pen tool selected. You have to be kind of careful with that. Once again, hold down the control button to kind of pull your... You have to, like, once again, draw your curve. Then once you've drawn your curve, and you want to say, for instance, I don't want this to curve quite so much, you hold down the control button to adjust the anchor point. And from there you can click and you can finalize your anchor point better. Go. So you can add new anchor points once you get done. You can pull your anchor points around. You can curve the things you might have made before. Yeah, this has got some pretty good editing stuff when it comes to your curves for your paths. Alright, so once you have that done, once you have that just about finalized here, let's pull this in a little bit. Alright, neat. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and put the background in as, like, say for instance, blue, and I'll take the border away. I'll make it 0 pixels, 0 pixels, nope, not 50 pixels, 0 pixels. And yeah, okay, cool. So I'll just go ahead and get rid of the background drawing here. And while we're at this, let's just talk a little bit about how we might come back to this, right? So I go over to File Settings. I call this something like Pig Typography. save the file name, right? And if I were to say, for instance, go back to my profile, I could still see what I've got of this design so far. So we've got this design, this sort of cut out of the pig here. I can open this back up and I can continue back to this. So at any point, if you want to take a break, obviously you can take a break and you can start on a different project or different stuff and come back to this later on. Okay, so what we were talking about before about what I mentioned before about adding a little flair to it. So I'm going to have the word oink go across this, and I'll do what we did before where we have like, you know, just the letters sort of taking the shape of the object here, but I'm going to start off with the letter I. So I'm going to get my pencil tool and recall that we want to make sure that we sort of pick this up and run things so we don't have a whole bunch of different paths here. Obviously you can, you know, just whatever, you know, however the mood takes you. But I'm going to have the I be kind of across the back and then across the belly as well. So down here I'll just have the I be like down here as well. And I'll have that I be really a real long thing here. So I know I was saying we want to avoid all this, but okay, with whatever. And I'll have the O. I have the O. I have this all be hand drawn, just so we can kind of have this sort of. I'll have the O be inside the I here, and so I want to have like the I kind of extend all the way back, and have the O just be seated inside of it like that. And the same thing with the N. I'm gonna get the pen here, the pencil tool. I'll get the N. Okay, so I'm going to start off by cutting out the I, just so I can kind of get an idea as to where this is all gonna land. So I'll get my pen tool just so I can be a little more exact with this, and I'll just trace out. Here. Okay, good. Okay, so we have that, and we can just cut this right out, and so now we have this little slice out right here. Okay, good. And so as far as the O, what I can do is I might just sort of make a little cutout right here in the middle. So this whole thing can be the letter O. And so I'll just take out O here, and I'll just get my pen tool and maybe just... There you go. So just kind of experiment with that, and I'll cut this out as well. And let's get the I cut out on the other side here. So I could probably just cut the I out maybe straight to the jowl here. So I'll just go from here to... Okay, I'm liking this so far. This is looking kind of neat. So we'll cut out this N here, and it'll be real simple, just cutting out like a slice here and there. Just Alright, cool. Alright, so we're almost done with this. Let's maybe try to cut out the K here. We can cut out the K. I wonder if we could do like a little I don't want to cut out all that. I don't want to cut out this big wedge. I would like it to be more of like a little sliver, a little bit of a line. So maybe we can Cool. All right, so one by one, I'll just snap this away here. Now, let's talk about what this is not. This is not just kind of drawing the outlines on top of a solid color, and this is also not just sort of like laying down a different color on top of this. This is actually slicing this out. So we want to make sure we have the whole thing sliced out. So we've got oink right here, it's kind of sliced out with this pig. Now what's cool about this is that at any point you can once again just kind of click on this and sort of maneuver around. Let me just a little closer here to, say for instance, this guy. And I can, like, say for instance, go shrink this down some and make the gap a little smaller. Want to keep things consistent. Alright, cool. And so we'll finish this up by taking this whole thing and cutting it out of something else. So I'm going to get my rectangle tool, I'm going to just draw it real big, and it doesn't matter what color it is because I'll just make it send to the bottom here, and then we'll just cut this whole thing out, just stamp the whole thing out here. From here we can change the color. Maybe I'll change it to something like a teal color, and then from there let's put a gradient behind it. Let's put like let's go over here, change background to linear gradient, And then click on our gradient here, and just we'll change, say for instance, the top of the gradient to, say, like a pale pink. Obviously, you can choose whatever color you want. I'll just let you guys decide that yourself. So I'll go for like a pale pink to maybe like a darker scarlet. And then, yeah. And then we'll just take this thing here, and we'll put that in the bottom. And then we can, from there, we can just take our gradient, we can kind of maneuver where the gradient's going to start and stop. I want this to get really dark on the bottom there. All right, that's kind of neat looking. All right, so now let's talk about how we're going to submit this, because I think I saw some confusion on as far as the submission goes. When we export this, let's make sure that we're exporting this as a JPEG, and make sure the quality is up to 100, and make sure that the JPEG quality is the very least 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels. Download that, Pig Typgoraphy, save it, and then when you open it up, you should see that it's 2,000 pixels by 2,000. It should show up very well on that. All right, so we got this right here. So this will be, we'll do, and then we'll have another one where, and then we'll make our own version of this. So we'll practice these techniques here. So cool. I think we're getting a little bit familiar with this. This is a interesting little tool here. I found some other tools that we can use. So so very cool. Can't wait to see you guys produce. And happy designing.